Welcome to Seattle, home of the Seattle Seahawks, where the 12th man is alive and in the building.
Time now for Seahawks Central Radio, hosted by Jamie Nicole, Football Girl, and Kevin Norman.
This is the moment, tonight is the night. We'll fight till it's over, so we put our hands up like the ceiling can't hold us.
Seattle! Welcome, everybody. I believe we're on episode 6 of Seahawks Central Radio. We've got Shane Hallam on the line, fantasy guru expert, fantasy football draft analyst, president of @Draft TV, member of the Football Writers Association and of America and Fantasy Sports Writers Association. Welcome on, Shane.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah,
My brain just stopped there in the middle of that sentence.
that's all right.
It happens sometimes, I think. Hey,
You
Shane,
don't have to-
how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. I'm doing well. It's a pleasure. I appreciate you both having me on.
Absolutely, we're glad to have you. So, I'm not really sure if you're aware, but Kevin and I are like, we're, what would you say, like novice fantasy people?
Well,
I don't know.
I've played 3 seasons of fantasy.
Well, I would make you like a sophomore.
I didn't win very much. In
You got
fact.
redshirted the first year.
Yeah, well, the first year I didn't have an internet connection.
That's pretty thin.
That's a roommate that shut off the internet while I was gone, but that's a story for another time. But yeah, so I ended up on auto draft my first year with Sidney Rice injured.
Oh, yikes.
So yeah, that was the year that they put him on IR. So my fantasy luck was never very good from the start.
Yeah, and I just don't do it, so.
So we've got Shane on, who's a
Yeah.
fantasy expert, so he can
No,
enter. So
I
that
mean,
he
you,
can
get-
answer
you
fantasy
guys
questions.
you should definitely get into it. I'm literally addicted to fantasy football. I do upwards of 40 leagues a year.
I think that constitutes like a support group of some sort, an intervention.
Man, there's plenty. I don't even dwarf like some of the guys that play in hundreds of leagues and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's crazy, but yeah.
So 40,
I'm always
did you just
interested.
say 40? 40,
He
40
said
50.
40.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not crazy. He said 40. So, Shane, do you do any other sports fantasy teams other than football, or just football?
Just football. It's a year-round thing for me because I'm in dynasty leagues that go 365 days of the year with trading in December and trading in April and May and June. So I'm in leagues that run all year. It's all football all the time. That's all I have time for.
Well, I saw one of the pictures on your Twitter, because I totally stalked you before. We do it to every guest, but I totally stalked you before the show. And there's like this picture, and there's like 3 laptops, which was really, known as like drafting or whatever at school. But then there was like a roll of paper towels, like on the table with laptops. And
Sometimes you get excited about football. You just have to be prepared.
Good answer. I knew you were serious as soon as I was like, this guy he's legit. Like, he likes his fantasy. So I have questions then. Are you going to help me
Yeah,
or no?
let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So I have, Kevin and I are avid listeners to the Rich Eisen podcast. And the other day I was listening to it and he was saying not to draft any Patriots. Like, do you agree with that or disagree with that?
No, I disagree with that. Well, first and foremost, there's never a never draft list, in fantasy football, because there could always be a time when there's someone to take, and I think the Patriots are an example of a team where you can actually get some good value because there are people buying into that. I mean, a lot of people were used to passing him. We're used to drafting Tom Brady high, used to drafting, Randy Moss when he played there high, Wes Welker high. This year, it's the running backs that are coming at a value. I mean, Stephen Ridley for the Patriots scored double-digit touchdowns last year. That without Aaron Hernandez, maybe without Rob Gronkowski for a little while, they're gonna ride the run. I mean, they were one of the most successful rushing teams last year, and that often gets overlooked. And then his backup Shane Vereen gonna take that spot from Danny Woodhead and probably do some more with it because he's more talented. So if you're in a PPR league, you get points for receptions. Shane Vereen's a nice pick. And then obviously the guys that are going to fill in. Danny Amendola hopefully will fill that Wes Welker role. He's a player to target. And you got to still take Gronk. I mean, even if he's going to be out for 6 weeks, he only played, a handful of games last year. He missed about 4 games. He was still the number 1 scoring tight end in fantasy football. So he can miss some games and still get you a ton of value. And then in that receiver core, I said late in your drafts, take a shot on some of these players. Take a shot on some of the rookies. Aaron Dobson out of Marshall, the big long player. Kembrell Tompkins, the undrafted free agent out of Cincinnati. Because one of these guys is going to hit. You know Tom Brady's going to throw the ball to them. If you hit on a Patriots starting receiver, then you're going to have a starter that you got in maybe the last round.
Hey, Shane.
Wait. I want to go back to the Gronkowski. What if it's
I want to
Tebow
know what a
throwing to him?
PPR is.
Okay.
PPR's out if you get a point for every reception. There's a lot of leagues now where you get, you get points for yardage. Every 10 yards, maybe rushing, you get a point. Every 10 yards receiving, you get a point. A lot of leagues now, you get a point for a catch as well. So that helps to kind of out the Darren Sproles, the Shane Vereen, those types of players.
Gotcha. Okay, Kevin, go ahead. I'm sorry, I had to be dumb for a minute, but.
So what if it's Tebow throwing to Gronkowski?
Well, it's not. The news is good on Tom Brady.
No, I know. I just saw that.
Whew, if it was, then maybe we'd be talking about not drafting Patriots.
Today when Tom Brady went down, I bet there are a lot of people in New England that were holding their breath till the news came out.
Did you see me? My Twitter timeline blew up Tebow time, and I was like, y'all need to calm down. Just no, don't do that. Calm down.
Skip Bayless probably got really excited.
That guy's a hater anyways. It doesn't matter what he says. All right. Well, okay. So I still have no idea. We've interviewed so many fantasy people, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. What brought you to fantasy in the first place? Because me, it's, doing this. What was your claim to getting into fantasy football?
Yeah, I actually started fantasy football well before I was really into it. I'm from Pittsburgh, so my family all grew up Steeler fans and things. And when we got our old AOL internet with the dial-up and all that, it took like 5 years to look up something online. I don't know. I just wanted something fun to do. My family's kind of into football, so I joined a free Yahoo Fantasy Football League. One of the first years they were doing it. I think it was 1996, something like that. I was real young. I had no idea what I was doing. My first ever pick was a first-round pick. His name was Mark Bruner. He was a tight end for the Steelers. He was a blocking tight end. He didn't even catch passes, but I picked him in the first round. I had no clue what I was doing. So I've studied up and bought magazines, and now I watch so much football. I do NFL draft stuff, so I'm watching NFL and I watch college football throughout the week, all week. And so it's all studying and getting to know these guys.
College football. We're fans of college football. Well, Pac-12 anyways over here. Well, so what if you, what's the most interesting thing that you've seen from fantasy football this year, draft-wise?
I think one of the most interesting things is that it bucks the trend of the real NFL with the quarterback position this year. This is a really deep year for quarterback. And oftentimes, especially if you're in, a beginning fantasy football league, or if you're in maybe a local league with your friends, the people that get all the press on ESPN, the people that get all the press on TV are the quarterbacks. You'll see Aaron Rodgers go high. You'll see Drew Brees go high. You'll see Tom Brady go high and Peyton Manning go high. This year, that doesn't need to happen because there's so many good young quarterbacks. I up at drafttv.com/fantasy, I have my rankings up, and there's about 12 quarterbacks that I think you can have on your fantasy team and be successful. So what that tells me is, when everyone else has taken Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees and those guys in the first round, you take your running backs, you take Adrian Peterson, you take C.J. Spiller, you take Arian Foster, you take Calvin Johnson, receiver even, and just wait. And you can get Andrew Luck for the Colts really late. You can get Matt Ryan late. You can get Tony Romo as a worst case scenario. You can find but the thing with fantasy is it doesn't matter how good these players are. They can be absolute crap. But if they put up numbers, you get points. Yeah. So that's all you have to worry about. And I think quarterback's a position this year that I'm waiting until the 7th, the 8th round sometimes to take a quarterback, and I'm still going to win my league.
So better fantasy pick, Kaepernick or Wilson?
Oh, that's a close one. I'm not a big Kaepernick guy. I want to see a little bit more. I like Russell Wilson better. I feel a lot more confident that he is a franchise quarterback. And even with the Percy Harvin injury, I still think we saw the second half of last year, he was a top 5 scoring quarterback in fantasy. And I think Kaepernick, maybe they're going to go back to the run with that Crabtree injury. I'm taking Wilson over Kaepernick every time.
Good answer. You're on the right show for that answer. So what do you expect fantasy-wise from Marshawn Lynch this year?
I think he's just going to keep doing what he's been doing. I think we know what Marshawn Lynch is. You know, he's not a back that's going to catch a ton of passes. He's a back that's going to be relied on, going to get those red zone opportunities. He might not have the upside of maybe some of the flashier running backs, C.J. Spiller in Buffalo, Jamal Charles in Kansas City with kind of their new systems and catching passes and able to break out 80-yard runs. Marshawn Lynch can't do that. So I think at the kind of the end of your first round, beginning of your second round, he's a player to target. He's a nice running back too. He's nice to be the second running back on your team. Maybe, yeah, it'd be nice to have Doug Martin or Adrian Peterson as your top guy and have Marshawn Lynch number 2 because you know what you're getting out of him each and every week. You feel good that he's going to give you a handful of fantasy points, probably get you a touchdown, have a nice couple 100-yard games sprinkled in there, and you're going to end the season feeling good with him. I think he's one of the sneakier fantasy picks. People want to go for the sexy young guys, the Trent Richardsons, the Alfred Morrises. Marshawn Lynch is probably going to outscore them this year.
I think Marshawn Lynch is sexy.
You like the golden grill in his mouth.
I do. I don't know. I like the thugs, I guess. My brother's turning all sorts of red over here.
Do you know how hard it is to clean puke up out of a keyboard?
You know how many times you said that on this show? I think that should just
That's
be
how
your...
difficult it is how many times I've said that on the show.
Mantra. Well, and I should have asked this question earlier, but like I said, I was stalking your Twitter and I saw a picture of a specific tight end who is wearing Raiders gear who does not happen to play for the Raiders. How do you feel about Kaepernick wearing Dolphins gear?
I think it's fine. I don't care. I think it's one of the biggest non-stories ever. Like basketball players do it all the time. I don't think it means a thing. I mean, wear whatever you want. I don't think it's going to affect them on the field. That's all I care about.
I hope it affects them on the field. So, all right. Kevin, did you have any other questions?
AJ Jenkins or Doug Baldwin?
Oh yeah.
I'm going to go AJ Jenkins there for the pure upside. Doug Baldwin, he kind of is what he is. I actually think that he could get surpassed with one of the younger players on the Seahawks. I like Steven Williams a lot. I like Chris Harper, the rookie that they got out of Kansas State. I think is really underrated. So I have a feeling he could actually lose that number 3 job at some point this year. AJ Jenkins, he might stink. He might be really bad, but you're getting him so late in your fantasy drafts that to be the starting receiver for the 49ers could get him some targets. He has more upside than Doug Baldwin does. So I'm going to go with AJ Jenkins there.
Yeah, I think the difficult part about that is like with Williams and Harper is they're not going in the slot.
Right.
Whereas Baldwin would have to play the slot if he were going to stay on the roster. Do you think, what about AJ Jenkins or one of the outside guys like Golden Tate?
Yeah, so now there, I would take Golden Tate. I would take Sidney Rice over AJ Jenkins at this point. I think they both have proved it more. I feel confident with that. I mean, I don't think Golden Tate's going to be this tremendous stat player. I think he's a better football player than he is fantasy football player, just with the sheer amount of catches that he gets. But he got a ton of targets late last season. Obviously, Russell Wilson likes him a lot. And I also feel like Sidney Rice, if healthy, ever healthy, God only knows. I really thought he would benefit with Percy Harvin next to him, but I think he's one of those severely underrated players in the NFL. I mean, that great season with Minnesota, people were propping him up. Then he disappointed, moved to Seattle, and he's just been doing his thing since he's been there. When he's been on the field, he's been quietly effective. So I actually probably take Golden Tate even over Sidney Rice just because of the injury factor. But I like both those guys over AJ Jenkins because we haven't seen AJ Jenkins do a darn thing yet.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Shane.
No, anytime. I appreciate you guys having me. It's always fun. Always fun to talk some fantasy, talk some Seahawks football. That's what I do.
I learned stuff. I learned what a PPR was and to take Adrian Peterson. That's what I got.
Football fans, check out the official t-shirt apparel shop for the Pro Football Central Radio Network. Check out bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. That's bigfrog.com/Cincinnati. You think it, we ink it. They have an awesome 24-hour turnaround time. You can also visit them at their fabulous store over at Anderson Town Center, 7426 Beachmont Avenue, Cincinnati, Ohio 45255. That's bigfrog.com/Cincinnati.
That was an awesome mantra. Now I can't, you think it, we ink it. Is that what they said? You think it, we ink it.
Yeah. Welcome back, everybody.
I like things that rhyme.
I want to first apologize because I still have not WD-40'd my chair.
Oh, we forgot.
Yeah, I forgot. That's my fault. So if you hear that, I apologize. You know what? I'll sit on the ground. How about that's my punishment?
That's probably a good idea. It reminds me of that Wale song with the bed springs in it. Not a good. Don't throw up on your keyboard again.
I can't. I'm too far below.
That's probably a safety precaution, actually. Hey, let's talk about the preseason game. The first one.
Our first preseason game against the Chargers.
Someone was on Twitter and they were like, the Bolts. And it literally took me like 2.5 seconds to be like, what the? Oh, Chargers get it.
Lightning bolt.
Driving. Yeah, Bolts. I get it. You're funny.
That's dumb.
You think so? I was like, it saves space on Twitter. You don't have to put like they could have put like SD, but whatever.
I mean, yeah, when you want to talk crap to other teams, you gotta, loosen your Twitter down to 4 letters for your team name. We do it, Hawks. We don't put C.
Some people put C. It's true.
They just put a C though.
No. Go look. See, Eileen is shaking her head too.
No, yeah, I'm joking. Calm yourself.
I thought it was serious. Apparently, I don't understand my brother's emotions. I can't gauge them.
I'm also I'm taller than you, so right now I'm shorter than you since I'm sitting on the floor. So
that's my equilibrium up.
So let's talk about that preseason game that
I almost predicted the score. I would like to add, almost predicted the score. That was crazy. I was just talking out my butt. And then we would 31-10 or whatever, and I was like, 31? Eileen looks at me, and she was like, you might be magic or something. I don't remember what she said. Or maybe you said you might be right, and I said I'm magic. That sounds more like what happened.
You said 34-17, right?
At 31, though, we were like, this might happen.
Yeah. It didn't. Especially with Carson Wiggs kicking.
How many times was Carson Wiggs on TV? Like, every time I turned around, I was like, well, there's Carson.
I was watching the replay on NFL Network, and the Chargers host said Carson Wiggs about 8 times.
What was he talking about?
Carson Wiggs kicking. That was it. He was just like, Carson Wiggs is up. Carson Wiggs. That's quite a fantastic name. Carson Wiggs.
He has such a... Yeah, I was going to say, because he has such a great name. Carson Wiggs. Wiggy Bank on Twitter.
Yep, go follow him. He's a character.
Yeah. He's really funny, too. I'm surprised he doesn't have as many followers as most people, because he's hilarious, and we told him that we were going to low-key talk about him today, and I just said we were going to talk about him, and he said if you want some low-key comments, then holla at your boy, and I was like, posting it on Twitter is not low-key, Carson.
You should actually you should message Carson and say, hey, do you want one of your low-key comments out on the podcast?
Right. No, I want him on. I want him on. That would be hilarious. Hilarious. He's like one of the funniest people I know.
Yeah.
I'd probably not talk the whole time because I'd just be. I think on his Twitter, doesn't it say like for professional, or not nothing? It's just I kick balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
On Twitter, he kicks balls. Anyway, so your score would have been correct had Steven Hauschka made that 61-yard field goal.
We now know that his range is 60. That's it. That's all he got. 60.
60. I mean, it bounced off the bar, and everyone was just like, "Oh."
I know. I was at the bar, and everybody's like, "What?" Oh, and I was like, "Oh, football's back."
I know. I saw them like pat him on the back, like, "Hey, good try, buddy."
It's okay. Next time we have 60, though, you're up. You're up. Yeah, that's his range. So now we know. That's good. Preseason. It's good information to have before it actually matters.
And then the other thing that you noticed is when the defense first got on the field in that first drive, they got torn up a little bit by the Chargers.
Oh yeah, just a little bit. The first, I guess it was the first couple plays. I was like, okay, just need to find a rhythm or something, because I just didn't. I don't know. It was a good game. I mean, we ended up being explosive. You're the one who was talking about the whole linebacker concern. I'm sure you want to go into that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So basically what you saw was Phillip Rivers knew exactly where to target on the field. He knows not to test our corners. He knows that backfield's solid. But the first thing you saw him do was go straight towards the middle of the field where those linebackers on.
Which is a weakness.
Yeah, and that was a weakness if you even go back to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, the other criticism that I had is that, like, it's not like anyone's never seen the Seahawks start off slow, so it really wasn't that big of a surprise. You go back to the Atlanta game, we didn't score till halfway in the third quarter. And so it's kind of like, what did you expect? Of course we start off slow, but we end well. And which is what you saw, even though this is a preseason game, so there's many things, many factors and variables that go into that. But, I mean, the Seahawks wear their opponents out. They don't necessarily start strong, and if you kind of expected that going into this, we might be able to call you a fair weather fan.
Well, let's talk about that. First of all, I wanted to say you don't win the game in the first quarter. And yes, no, I understand that. But in preseason especially, I think I expected more, and then we found our rhythm. Personally, there's just so much hype going on, especially this year, that I personally expected more. But I'm very happy with the outcome of the game. You can see where we need improvement. You can see where we're strong. Definitely we have really good second and third string compared to a lot of other teams, but I really want to talk about fair weather fans since you already brought it up.
Really quick, the one thing that I want to say is that you also have to realize that we had a lot of different people that are 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s on that field. And even in that first drive, it wasn't the whole first unit.
No, not at all.
Both for offense and defense. I mean, you're seeing Jermaine Kearse catch passes. He's not yet the first unit, so.
No, absolutely. And
also,
know that.
Luke Wilson was also catching passes. So, I mean, you gotta figure that we had a lot of depth on that field in those first two drives, and that was potentially to see how they all work together.
Right.
All right, now you can go into your fair weather fans.
I don't really, you're the one who brought it up to me in the first place because I was completely out of, after the preseason game for whatever, I kind of took like an internet break. I don't know if that makes sense, but I was like not really on Twitter. I was not really like on Facebook. I was just not, whatever. I don't know what it was, but it just wasn't. And then you texted me and you were like, retweet this. And so I went on your Twitter and it said that people were calling for Tavarius Jackson to be a starter, and I shit myself pretty much. I was like, are you kidding me? What year is it? Like, I had no idea. So I went and I saw like on, the WrestleMania page on Facebook. If you don't know it, like, it's a pretty good page.
There were multiple fans in multiple places that were saying Tavarius Jackson should start after Wilson's performance, and you got to figure.
Don't get me wrong. I like T-Jack. I really do. But are you out of your damn mind?
These are literally fans that are either trolls from other teams or they're people who just hopped onto the bandwagon.
And I knew that was going to happen because we just talked about it. We just talked about how this year we're in the spotlight and we're going to end up getting, these people who feel like they have voices and they've never been here before. They haven't been through struggles. Like, whatever, I get it. I had a first year in football too. But shut up. That's all I gotta say.
Well, the problem is also that people don't necessarily know what preseason is for.
How do you not know what preseason is for?
Well, I mean, it's not obvious when it's like, oh, there's a preseason game. What does this mean? Well, right now there are 90 plus people are on the roster, and some of those people are trying to make the roster. If you lose a preseason game, you're not out anything because the point of the preseason game is to make roster adjustments and see how these units play together and how well each individual is doing.
Right.
So, I mean, even them having Russell Wilson out there for as long as they did with him scrambling around, I was pissed. And I wasn't pissed because of how Russell Wilson was playing. I was pissed because I felt they had him out there too long. If he's scrambling...
I definitely agree with that. I could definitely agree with that.
Yeah, if he's scrambling like that and he's not getting... Like, if you looked at the other side of the field when they showed the replays, the wide receivers were not getting open. They were on man coverage.
He had his eyes downfield the entire time, too.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that, fans that are just starting to get into football, they don't know to look for these things. They don't know to look that Russell Wilson's not tucking and running. He has his arm cocked back, looking. Like, he's looking downfield. They don't know that, like, when the camera pans in, that they're just looking down at the quarterback. They're not looking at the whole field. What the NFL and these networks need to realize is that most of us have widescreen TVs. We want to see not only the quarterback, but what's going on a little bit downfield. You don't have to give me the full secondary, but please give me a little bit more of the field so that I can see what the wide receiving core is doing so that, people aren't blaming these things on the quarterback because it isn't always the quarterback.
No, absolutely. And you know what? You're right. I guess if you don't know very much, you're going to call out those, that doesn't really make sense. But, since the beginning when we first got into football, you taught me, what to look for. So I guess I'm just being completely absorbed in my own NFL reality and not, paying attention. It just doesn't make sense. Like, I don't even know how these Tavarius Jackson comments came up in the first place. There's nothing that I saw personally that I would call for T-Jack or even be like, oh, that's why they called for T-Jack. Nothing.
Well, I would say that the reason that they did is because they don't realize that those are 3s and 4s units that are out on the field. So Tavares Jackson was playing against deep roster defensive
Which
players.
made him look great.
Which makes him look great.
Right. I mean, he is. I like him, but...
Well, yeah, so what you're probably going to see is they may, this week or next week, move him up into the number 2 spot for quarterback to see how he does against those people. They're not going to move him up to number 1 because you don't change your quarterback, especially when you've established that you have great leadership in Russell Wilson. You don't do that. So, I mean, this topic is pretty much moot. These fans that are doing this they're new, pat them on the head, tell them it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I like that. It's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know what the case is. I'm just flustered about it, I guess.
Well, I mean, the other thing, you did see some good things in this game. You saw Christian Michael come out there and completely dominate.
Potential Beast Mode 2.0. He's very explosive, and he can cut, definitely. He juked that guy. What did Dustin say when he did it when you were here? For people who don't know Dustin, he's a friend of Kevin's, and...
We're trying to get him on Twitter because the guy's all one-liners.
Like everything he says. He wants to be a part of anything that we do, and so we told him that step 1 is to be on Twitter, and then maybe carry the equipment later. I wouldn't let him do that. I mean, I would make him do that. I like Dustin. But what was he saying about it?
About Michael or about...
Yeah,
I don't think...
he said something about Michael juking. I don't know.
No, he was mainly Fairweather fan comments.
Oh, all right.
But anyway, the thing about Kristen Michael is that he didn't exactly feel like Marshawn Lynch because he's a smaller back and he doesn't drag the pile like Marshawn Lynch does, and I don't think we're going to come to expect that out of him. Turbin's more of a drag the pile type running back. Lynch is more of a drag the pile type running back. Michael's more of a have a blocker, he bursts through, and then he's going to have to do some work to lose the guys that are on him.
He definitely had good eyes at finding holes, though.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, and like I said, he can cut really well, too. So I was happy with his performance. Not happy with his performance on The Real Rob Report, however, if anybody saw that. So when we were... I'll just let that one slide. P.S. I love Chris Clemens. But so I was with Bigelow, and he made some comments about Kristen Michael being compared kind of to Sean Alexander. I don't necessarily understand the full comment, to be honest with you. I mean, we were in a bar, it was really loud, like, whatever. But I think it was more of, like, his running style than anything else.
Yes.
And I can kind of, I mean, if that's where Bigelow is going with it, like, I can kind of see that. Not everything else. But, I mean, I can kind of see that aspect to it. And Bigelow was just saying that he seemed familiar to him. So I thought that was definitely something that we should bring up to look for the future.
Yeah, and I think we'll start to see that in these upcoming preseason games because Sean Alexander was one of those smaller type backs where, you know, he just bursts through. He has a blocker, he bursts through. He doesn't necessarily drag the pile or get guys off, but he jukes the crap out of them. He makes a move on guys and gets away from people. So
which is a lot like Kristen, so that really, you know, it works out. Who currently he sat out of practice again or training camp again today.
That was back spasms, right?
Yeah, he did when I went on Sunday, and then I got confirmation that he didn't suit up again today. And I mean, you know, like we were talking about before, and I think it was actually on another broadcast that we did that, you know, back spasms just come with being a running back.
Yeah.
So something to be expected. I know that I got several text messages today and even more last Sunday about him sitting out. I'm not worried about it, you know, especially since Marshawn is back at the game.
It's a running back thing. Marshawn Lynch has the same issue. We've seen running backs in the past have the same issue.
Oh, yeah.
So it's something to keep an eye on, but, you know, it's the kind of body build that they have. They are going to get back spasms, especially when people are constantly trying to push them down and throw them around.
I just couldn't imagine. Like, I would be irritated if I got back spasms, I think.
So another thing that I wanted to talk about is that Spencer Ware didn't appear to have the same explosiveness that he had in camp.
Yeah, in camp we were super impressed. And I
Yeah.
remember that was a conversation that went on for a while after camp, and we talked about talking about it on the show. And yeah, I didn't see that. I don't know what happened.
I mean, that could just be, you know, it's his first preseason game. He's
Right.
trying to figure out the mechanics of it, work his way around. But it's something to keep an eye out for.
For the
He
next
was
game,
very
yeah.
impressive at LSU, so we'll see how he does. But it's definitely something to watch over the next couple of weeks.
So you're thinking about just give him a couple more games and then...
Oh yeah, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
first game nerves, it'll happen.
I guess in my opinion, if he didn't show such potential in camp when we were there, you know what I mean? I might have a differing opinion. And a lot of fans don't get to go to training camp for whatever reason, because they don't take that time out of their day, or because Bing didn't give them tickets like they like to give people. That was I should just shout Bing out, by the way. I was going to, because they just totally gave people tickets this year, and like today they gave people signed jerseys. But anyways, back to training camp. For people who don't get to see training camp, they wouldn't have known very much about Ware at all. And he completely impressed me in camp and did not in preseason. So
Yeah.
maybe we should just let that, you know, for the people who haven't, he still has an it factor to him.
Yeah, and for those people that can't go to training camps, it's likely because of
Shame
work.
on you.
Oh, yes. Gotta make money. A lot of people are at work.
I know. I turned down 2, and I was like, I gotta work. Monday,
Wasn't your
Friday.
text like, hey, gotta make money?
Yeah, or my tweet, I think it was something like, yeah, I gotta support the auto body world or something. I don't know, something like that. I'm dumb most of the time. So, who else? What else did you want to talk about?
I like the Jermaine Kearse touchdown. And
Go
he...
to Lele. Oh, sorry.
Lele, yeah.
I have gotten more questions about him since the preseason game than probably any other player. And, you know, like, people come to me and ask me, you know, whatever, like, who's this guy? And, you know, I don't know if people know, but he's Star's cousin. So that was cool.
Not.
That's what I've heard.
I read that's a misconception.
I don't know. Because I read it on UNLV website.
And I read that it's...
UNLV is his college. Yeah. Okay, so he may or may not be Star's cousin. Either way, well, they say, and Lele is, like, undersized. Well, I mean, that's, you know, for his whatever, but he impresses a lot of people. I don't think anybody even mentioned his name before the preseason game, and now he's all over. And he doesn't have a Twitter, I learned.
He'll get one. But, I mean, they'll definitely move him up the depth chart.
I'm hoping so.
Oh, yeah, it looks like they fixed that. John is his cousin. Yeah, John's the cousin of Star Lotulelei. They had that before where it said that he wasn't.
Yeah, see? I win.
Okay, last week with your whole rant about the penalties, and I was like, I don't know, I think that's if it's directed at a player, and I think I was correct on that one.
Football fans, looking to get healthy this year? Now is the time, and I have the perfect place for you. Save 10% at onit.com/football radio. Exclusive PFC radio listeners save 10% off their order. That's onit.com, ONNIT.com/football radio.
Dude, I want some on it.
I was just thinking I need that. I need that, like,
the brain one?
Stuff. Yeah, because, like, the less sleep I've been getting lately, like, the more I need a brain, and I don't have one.
I keep begging our producer for some, but he won't give it to us.
It's because he hates us.
He hates us.
He doesn't hate us. So funny. Oh, but he does send a Skype of him having brain. What is it called? What is the brain one called?
Does that say Burt Reynolds?
The brain one? It's called Alpha Brain. It's not called...
Alpha Brain, that's right.
Did you think that Brian, our producer, was Burt Reynolds?
No, I thought it read Burt Reynolds on the label that he's showing us.
Yeah, no, it was...
We're having a tour of the product, but our video chat isn't working very well. I think that's a shadow tech. I assume that's for ninjas.
I like ninjas.
Little up, Brian. Little... Never mind. All right, let's get back to the show.
I really want to get back to what we were talking about before we were so rudely interrupted by me, actually. Before I rudely interrupted us. I don't remember what we were talking about before.
So we wanted to talk about that whole situation with the referees and how that issue got completely blown out of control on Twitter. You've got your hand raised. Yes, Jamie.
I would like to start this conversation off. Only because I was one of the most vocal people about it, and I wanted to give you kudos, which I don't do often, so relish in that moment, about saying that the NFL needed to come up with a better communication system, because it is something that they're definitely talking about now. A little late, but, and they came out a day after we made our podcast about the no celebration rule and clarified the no celebration rule one full day after. Way to go, media. So it's not as crazy as people think, and I still don't quite, even though I listened to the Rich Eisen podcast, especially because he had one of the referees, and I don't remember the guy's name, to be honest with you. I don't know. But anyways, are you looking it up?
Yeah, that's easy to find.
To myself right now.
Because you were like, you've got to listen to this, and then I listened to it, so it's right here.
I listened to it first, and then I told you to listen.
Is it Dean Blandino?
Yeah.
It's Dean.
So, anyways, he clarified that
he's like one of the lead referees. He's like one of the head honchos. So it's not like some referee came on.
Yeah, like that girl that everyone hates. But no, he clarified that there is still a celebration. They're not trying to take the jovialness or the funness out of the sport necessarily. There are some rule changes, but you can celebrate as long as it's still non-excessive, no choreographed, like we've seen in the past or whatever, and it cannot be directed towards the player. And if I'm not mistaken, he said that sack dances are still allowed as long as it's not of a violent nature. So you can't do the throat slash or whatever, but you can still do the home run, swings. You can still do the Hulk, whatever.
You can still lasso as long as you're not lassoing the quarterback.
Well, you can. Yeah, because you can't beat the quarterbacks unless you're going to lasso backwards, in which case I'm sure that would be okay.
Anyway, basically, if it's not directed at a particular player, then it's okay. And part of the reason that they speculated that this all got out of control through the social media and it was a huge frenzy of confusion, especially on, not only our end, but on Twitter and Facebook and every meme area you could, is because there was an image of a Sports Center screen that pretty much just said, this is what's not allowed, and then listed all of those things without...
And players were retweeting it too. It wasn't, or posting them on their social network sites anyways. And like even Rich Eisen said, it got him too. So, everybody was in a complete frenzy about this no celebration thing, especially us here, because that'd suck. But yeah, it's not as bad as we think it is. So I'm glad that we got some sort of clarification, especially from somebody that, knows better.
And it's good that it's a point of emphasis that they're not allowed to do this, because it's like, okay, well, then it takes, sportsmanship out of it, but they're not taking it away completely, which means that the fun's still in it. So it's just the same as it was. It's just every year they focus on certain rules that they're going to emphasize. And this year happens to be the year that they're going to focus on the sportsmanship rules, which, it sucks, but we don't want 20-minute TO dances.
Oh, TO. Well, and then, it wasn't just that, though. They were saying that they've always tried to focus on sportsmanship, was what he was saying. They're just trying to highlight it more this year than any other year because it's, the taunting has gotten to an extreme in their opinion. So, and it's just taunting, personally, I like it, but if they're not taking away everything, then I'm fine with it. And it has nothing to do with the NFL brand. No, everything to do with the NFL brand. It has nothing to do with the players as a brand. And I think that that's where a lot of people got up in arms, with is like the individualness of players. So cleared, safe, I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good. I can only do so much, but I'm not going to be, rioting.
Well, okay. That said, we're probably still going to do players' moves up in the stands because that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. That being said, I will definitely do it because I think it's awesome. And I'm going to make other people do it. It's going to catch on. It's the same as my #hand symbol. It's going to happen. It's going to be a thing. Trend it.
Trend it.
I've been saying that for days now. If anything's cool, I'm like, trend it. I know you think I'm an idiot, but one of us has to be funny.
Cool story, bro.
And it ain't you. Anyway.
Ouch.
Yeah, right. You don't have a heart. I don't have a brain and you don't have a heart. Let's just get over this. So, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, well, did you want to go back to what we were talking about before? Did you want to talk about that memo?
I mean, the biggest thing is that the NFL didn't communicate this properly, but not only that, it sounds like there was some irresponsible journalism through ESPN that occurred, which isn't, a surprise. It happens.
A
It's just,
lot. It's just I mean, that's just what happens. Like, and like you said, you can't believe everything that you read on Twitter. I do. Put something on Twitter, I'm gonna read.
Usually I Google it. The problem in this case was there was so much
Oh,
information,
yeah.
misinformation, that it spiraled out of control. And then I was even saying, like, well, I read some reports on NFL.com, if you heard me last week, that said, well, it's just if it's directed at a player. But
Right.
multiple people that we even had on the show were like, this is what I read, and it says it's
Oh,
banned
yeah.
completely.
It was one of those. It was like it was a Sharknado. That's basically what happened. Like it spiraled out of control. And you're right. If you Googled it, you came up with that Sports Center picture
Yeah.
for sure. There were players that were saying the same thing, and if players are saying it, then like the mass majority is obviously going to listen to.
The thing that I don't completely understand about the players saying it is that they have these meetings with the referees every training camp and watch the video, and the referees go over exactly what they're going to look for with the players. So did the referees not go over it correctly?
As far as I know, the referees, and from what Dean was saying, is that the referees go out to these training camps, but they don't go out to them all together. They visit them within the training camp period. So they go to, the Jags, and then they go to the Texans, like whatever. And so they went to a few, and then the story broke. And because the story broke and they hadn't gone to, say, the Seahawks or the Chargers or whatever, or the majority of the teams, that's where the wildfire of media burned.
Yeah,
because nobody had heard anything yet, except for those
by the time that this interview had occurred, they had gone to all the training camps and said,
There you
look, you can still do these celebrations. You just can't use another player.
So I think they still haven't gone to all of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Because as far as I know, there's only a couple. The rest of them are in some sort of training, for being a zebra, and then there's a couple that go out that are like the leaders of the officiating. So yeah,
Well,
and I think that they take all preseason, if I'm not mistaken, to talk to each and every team. So
well, Dean had said he'd been to at least 16, so that's at least half that have correct information.
And it's half of preseason, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they've gone through every team by now.
maybe. But either way, by the time this story broke, they did not have. Not everybody had the same information.
Yeah. So let's go over this new HGH testing policy memo as an update from last week.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a memo, so it's not necessarily written in stone. The NFL Players Association I'm gonna emphasize that tentatively. Is that better? Yeah, tentatively agreed to let the league take 40 blood samples for HGH tests each week during the season.
Great diction there.
Thanks. I like had 6 comments that I was like, I'm just gonna say thanks. Okay, so basically what they're saying is that with a positive result, it's gonna draw a 4-game suspension, is what this memo was stating. And again, none of this is concrete. This is just what policy is in place currently at this point in time. As we've heard before, they tested each player, whether you make it on the roster or not, during camp. They're taking that and they're making a population study for the sample of what is an appropriate HGH level. The people that are outliers, that are higher on this test, are going to be tagged, and then those people are definitely going to have a repeat test. If that repeat test comes up positive, then they'll have an 8-game suspension, and if that test comes out negative, it's a wash. So basically that's what the memo is saying. They're saying that they're trying really hard, that they need these blood samples for, height, weight, age, race, ethnicity type, information for this population study, just in case things like that vary. They're trying to put this in place as soon as possible. There's no date for exactly when the testing is going to start at this point in time. They don't have a comprehensive agreement for HGH testing currently, and that they feel that they've been talking about it for 2 seasons. This is rolling into the 3rd season, and that they have to put something in place. So that's basically what the memo is talking about. I mean, do you feel like 4-game suspension is an accurate suspension for HGH testing? I knew you weren't going to.
No, absolutely not. And the reason that I think that is because HGH alters the chemical makeup of your body. And so that changes who you are physically as a person. I mean, my biggest problem with this whole population study is that it's not an exact science, so you're potentially also damning people who didn't do anything. Now, I know that other medical associations have come out and said this is complete BS. Like, you have a certain HGH level in your system that will be present, and so once that system is determined of what the average level is, they can just do the testing, and then whoever has higher levels potentially has taken HGH and they'll retest them. I still think with the possibility of condemning someone to a 4-game suspension or an 8-game suspension without an exact science is kind of a BS. I mean, it sucks. But I mean, on the other hand, if we do have exact systems in place, once we do have exact systems in place, it should be a greater suspension because you're completely altering how your body is chemically made. You're altering kind of who you are as a person physically.
Well, and I think it's not only that, but a 4-game suspension you can get for Adderall, 4-game suspension you can get for Vicodin, like whatever. Like, you know, a 4-game suspension is a pretty broad, as we've talked about before. If HGH is the king of all chemicals that gives this better edge to players, you know, and the people who are doing the right thing, it's not really fair for them. I don't think a 4-game suspension is necessarily enough. I think this test, or at least they could have, like you said, come up with a better science when they first started talking about this. I'm pretty sure that we're one of the only leagues that doesn't have something more concrete in place. Like, out of other sports, I'm pretty sure the NFL is kind of dragging their feet about it. But, you know, just like everybody said, this testing can definitely cause issues and waves because we don't know who's on it. We don't know who's not. We don't know, you know, anything. And the outliers are going to get punished one way or another. You know what? Science loves variation. Nature loves variation. So I can kind of see why they're trying to come up with a population study. At least they didn't, so that there's no way to dispute it later.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. It's just kind of frustrating that it isn't an exact science, and that even if they were to give suspensions, it's like, okay, look, taking Adderall, which we know these players aren't necessarily taking Adderall, but taking Adderall versus taking HGH, that's a night and day different thing of what you're doing. You're doing two completely different things and getting the same punishment, and one, I believe, is way worse than the other.
Right. And that's kind of my whole point, too, is if you're going to have such a broad punishment, so if you're going to have such a broad punishment for something that varies, you know, in the eyes of everybody else, whether it be, you know, morality or whether it be chemical enhancement or whatever, I wonder if this is going to affect the game. Like, I wonder if people who are on HGH are going to stop doing it, and we're going to see that. Because if I'm not mistaken with HGH, if you stop taking it, then you can have potentially cardiomyopathy or arthritis, joint pain, and I think muscle deterioration. Don't quote me on that. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but my political side of me says that there's definitely hurdles they still need to clear here before. I mean, the thing is that if they do this wrong, they're going to get sued. This is going to be akin to the concussion controversy. You can't you can't just kick people out without an exact science or a specific way of testing that completely works.
Well, now there's this huge, you know, what is it, lawsuit about the concussions.
There's another lawsuit, yes.
So, I've heard about deer antler spray. Have you heard about that?
That's who was accused of that one?
Ray Lewis.
Ray Lewis, yeah. Ray Lewis was accused of taking the deer antler spray.
Yeah. And I guess there's not really any testing for it. But it contains like an IGF-1. It's like an insulin, like growing factor 1 or something. And it's the easiest to recover. Like, he allegedly recovered from a torn bicep muscle because of it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it makes you run faster and whatever, but, you know, there are a lot of ACLs, especially this year. There's like so many torn ACLs in the league. Go get some deer antler spray. I don't know. Or, I know it's banned, but, get some on it.
Get something that's legal.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know, our sponsor talks about all the time being able to. Our producer talks about how our sponsor, you know, has amazing verbal stuff. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I wonder if it's going to affect the game. You know, in one hand, it's really good that they're doing this, especially for people who, you know, are playing without any sort of enhancements.
Yeah.
This is, you know, it's not a really fair world for them, for sure. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see. I know Adrian Peterson made a comment about being excited about this HGH testing so that he can prove that he wasn't on it.
Yeah. And actually, Adrian Peterson's comments were pretty awesome, where he's like, yeah, I kind of like it when people think that I'm on that stuff, because I'm not, so that means that I'm doing really good. If
Right.
people are accusing you of taking something where you're cheating, that means that you're doing really good. And I completely agree with Adrian Peterson on that.
He's just a freak of nature, seriously.
Yeah, he's a workout freak. If you saw his videos of how he was rehabbing
yeah.
his knee, they were using like these video games where he had to put his foot up against the wall and then move this board, and then as he moved his leg, the video game on the screen in front of him would react to how he was moving his leg. But it was intensive workout, but he was able to focus on playing the game, so it was like it wasn't even as intensive as you would think it would be.
But it was like, yeah, exactly. It was mentally there's hand-eye coordination. Yeah.
Exactly. Mentally, you're focused on that game, even though you're working out key muscles that you're trying to rehab. So that's why it's good rehab therapy.
Right, and they did a lot of water therapy too, which is really good for rehabbing anything. Actually, anything at all that you have that's injured, water therapy is really good for, because it doesn't put that strain and pressure on your body that it usually does if you're rehabbing. So, yeah, I don't necessarily think that Adrian Peterson, you know, I make a lot of comments about a specific person who healed too fast when it comes to injuries, and how I think potentially there could be an HGH situation. A lot of people think I'm talking about Adrian Peterson, and I'm not. I honestly think that guy is just a freak of nature, and he came back better than he was when he got injured. And I think that it was just hard work, discipline, you know, and him having the heart to do what he needed to do. I think Adrian Peterson is not on HGH. I don't.
For me,
he's not who I'm talking about.
For me, I don't think Adrian Peterson fits the character profile of someone who would do something like that.
Right.
He's too committed, the way that he acts. He's not, you know, Adrian Peterson's intense, but he's not HGH intense, if that makes sense.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. And that was, we should hyphen that.
Adrian Peterson is intense, but not HGH intense.
Hyphen Kevin, Storm, and Norman, and there's your one-liner. I know you hate it, but our producer gave it to you, so you just got to keep it. And it's kind of cool. Honestly, it reminds me of, like, you know, like Seattle Storm. Not the team, but like...
Oh, yeah, thanks. The women's basketball team is what...
you know, they're a kick-ass team. The Storm is an amazing basketball team. I know you're not into it, but they are an amazing basketball team. So you could have been compared to a lot worse. Like, you know, the guys that play soccer right down the road. Like, I could have compared you to that. I don't even know.
Or the guys that play fantasy golf.
I know. I cannot think that's, like, a thing. It's a thing, though. It is, like, actually a thing. But how do you get, is it, like, each, you know, people say that they get I don't know anything about golf. There's a big thing, and you hit the thing, and Tiger Woods is there. That's all I know.
That's Jamie.
I know. It's like less. And you're supposed to get, like, less points. Is that whatever? Anyway, how do you? So every person that gets less, it's like a more point for you. It just doesn't make the math doesn't add up. I don't math anyways.
So let's also talk about. Did you see the Russell Wilson interview on ESPN, where the point where Russell Wilson realized he wasn't a rookie and that he could play? Did you see that video?
No.
Okay, so.
Even if I know, so you can explain it.
Wow, make it interesting. Throw me for a loop. Ow, I just hit my hand on the chair instead of
why I'm laughing now, because you said
So Russell Wilson did an interview with ESPN, and basically said, like, right after that Patriots game where they came back and won, he was like, oh, man, all right, I can play. I'm good in the NFL. Not good in the NFL, but I can play in the NFL. I can hang with these guys. It's a pretty good interview. Talks about, you know, going and volunteering at the children's hospitals, and how he's like, you know, I'm blessed. I get to play a game. These kids are fighting for their life, and they're my inspiration.
He's such an amazing man. Even like on the Rob Report, like when you watch him, he has a different demeanor than a lot of other players too.
Yeah.
And you know, when they were talking about Hard Knocks, you know, in the Bengals or whatever, he still has this, I don't know what it is about him, but like he posts his goals in his locker. You know what I mean? Him and I have the same lotion. Thank you very much. But like, you know, there's something about him that is always calm. It's always, even when he's joking, it's still like he has everything under control always.
It's his aura, his persona, his composure. It's all those three things put together. That's the reason.
And I guess he did Mitsubishi, so that was kind of cool.
He did what now?
They did a spontaneous home run derby during camp, and somebody had broken down Montero, like Mitsubishi Montero or whatever, and like whoever did the home run like won it, and like Russell Wilson won it, and he was like, I think that's gonna be like the family car, like we're at the VMAX, we're gonna go out to eat, like let's take the broken down Mitsubishi. He was like, it's a nice vehicle, like it was just that you have to see that. It was really cool.
I'm sure he has the money to repair it.
I'm sure.
But yeah, so the other things that they talked about in the interview, actually no, I think that was mainly it. It was just volunteering at the Children's Hospital and when he can game, and what I wanted to talk about was with the Real Rob report. If you saw that this week, they went and they showed his locker, and he had like cubbies, and it was organized. He wouldn't actually let you see his whole locker. He was like, no, you got to keep the camera up there because there's stuff that apparently we're not allowed to see, but it's more like personal stuff.
Like,
and his personal goals.
Like his personal goals and stuff like that. And I'm sure, like, I wouldn't. You know, I know people want to delve into that part of Russell Wilson, but there's a point to it that needs to be elusive. Like, he needs to have his own life. And what if his personal goal is something that didn't necessarily match up with the Seahawks? Like, that would, you know, devastate a lot of people. So,
yeah, I don't think that was it, but it's one of those things that was kind of endearing. That it was just like,
he's so organized. That was something that I was like, of course he would be. Like, everything is lined up perfectly. And then when Rob was there, he was, like, still organized. Like, he was, you know. He was still putting things in place. It was really cute. That was a really good Real Rob report, and I'm not sure if it was because I haven't seen it in a while, but I thought it was a pretty good one. It was good to see Chris Clemens for sure, joking around and being Chris Clemens. Yeah, and then he kept getting mad at
other players for saying stupid things.
That's not even what I was gonna say. I was gonna say every time he put up his and he was like, "I'm having a conversation." Like,
that was awesome.
That's right.
And then there was the Winston guy coming on as he talked to with us about how he doesn't want to be on the Real Rob.
And then he came on my show and he says he doesn't want to be on the Real Rob report anymore. In the first Real Rob report that comes out, like Winston's there, and they're talking about him and Richard Sherman, who to me don't look anything alike, except for that they have dreads. And that I thought it was funny when Mike was like, you're saying that you don't look like, but you instantly only point out the tips of your dress.
Well, the first thing that Winston said was like, I don't want to be on your show. Like, I told you I'm not going to, and then he's on the show.
Right. Which was kind of like the interview that he had. He was like super kind of shy at first, and then we asked him about the Predator, and he was like talking McTalkers and all this stuff. I love Winston guy, like, especially seeing him at training camp. And it's funny because, like, he has no idea who we are, but we're all like, Winston! Like, what's up? You're the best. Predator. So why did they ban those Bane masks? I like words like that, by the way.
So you want to know why they banned those masks?
I like things like masks, like whisks.
Why they the Bane masks?
Yeah, I like it when they masks.
Stop.
My agent is laughing. That was my whole point.
Okay, you're probably annoying people who are in headphones right now with your hard S sounds, but you want to know why they banned the NFL masks that are more than 3 or 4 bars?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know why, because they are, like, they're safer than the 3 or 4 bar mask because you can't stick your fingers in them and pull a player down.
Well, and what I heard is that you can still have them if you have medical reasons to have them. So that's why I don't understand, because I don't understand what the necessity is.
So here's why it's hypocritical. The reason that it's hypocritical is you need one if you have a medical excuse. So if they prevent, something medical from flaring, like a neck injury or something of that nature, so you need them if you have a neck injury, why aren't they using them to prevent neck injuries? Why aren't they using them to prevent those sort of injuries? It doesn't make any sense. It's hypocritical. Right.
So I would feel like, I have a medical injury of not wanting fingers in my face.
Yeah. Justin Tuck, I think, had an eye thing where he got poked in the eye, so he can't. So he can't have that happen. It's either his eye or his neck. I know another guy has an eye issue, and that's the reason why they're allowed to have those masks.
But none of them should be able to be poked in the eye. I think you're right. I think you absolutely have a point. If we're going to do this, let's prevent concussions, let's do player safety, then give everyone a Bane mask. That is awesome.
Yeah, like those. I mean, it's like how they were saying, like, yes, the masks look cool, but they also serve a purpose. And the purpose is that you can't get your fingers in through the holes in the mask. You can still go up under, which if you go up under, it's a blatant face mask, like blatant face mask. But I mean, you can't even accidentally with these masks.
Dude, damn your finger. It would be.
I mean, maybe that's what they're trying to prevent, but it's like, come on now.
People jamming their fingers. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't. Your hand should not necessarily be. I would think that the more important thing would be people and their faces instead of people and their fingers. And you know what? I could be wrong. People, you need your fingers to play. Austin Safarian-Jenkins on the, Huskies broke his pinky and he's out. Sad. Surgery, because he has to get surgery. And that's no joke. We've talked about this before. I had a finger out for a while, and it ruined my week. It was horrible. You can't button your pants. You can't, texting. It was a thumb. It was even more. It was horrible.
I broke my middle finger catching a football from one of my friends, and I had to type 4 fingers.
Just constantly flipping somebody off while you're typing.
I had to type like this. And then when I got the finger fix, I couldn't stop typing without my middle finger lifted up.
I'm just going to tell people at work, I broke it. I'm not flipping you off.
Well, yeah, I guess I was writing for finals, so I was kind of flipping off the final.
Oh gosh, finals. Can't wait till I do that again in a couple months. Well, I don't know, I know people that are like, oh, it's just a finger. And I didn't even have a bad experience. I'm not a football player, but it was a flag football. I dislocated my thumb and I was miserable. I can't imagine. Imagine getting your finger stuck in a face mask. It must suck. Bring in the Bane masks. I'm writing a letter.
All right, go write your letter. In the meantime, thanks for listening to Seahawks Central Radio this week.
Yeah. Next week is going to be awesome because we are doing a trivia show. I'm going to be Vanna.
Okay. So the thing that I want to point out is that I will be at a wedding, so I have to miss this game against Denver.
Oh, yeah, but I'm going.
Yeah, you're going.
Yeah,
so I'll give you this notepad and paper. Take notes.
Sure. And I will be at King Street Bar and Grill before and after. So if anybody wants to come hang out, I would like to meet some fans. You know how I am.
I'd also like to clarify that if this were regular season, I'd be canceling on the wedding because it's a Seahawks game.
Oh, yeah, we had this conversation. And then after this year, if you get married, basically, if you get married, we're not coming. No, if you get married on the season, preseason included now, after this, I don't care who it is. I'm not going. I wouldn't go to it. If it was on a preseason, I wouldn't go. No.
I'm not getting married. Everyone calm down. The two
you
people who are...
Okay, but you wouldn't... I know, 2 people are like, what? But you wouldn't, if you ever did get married, which isn't necessarily in the future, you wouldn't do it with any game. I don't even think you do it with a training camp. I just don't... You're not that type of person. But anybody who's going to ask me to go better damn well know that I ain't going if it's football season. That's just how it is. Get married on a Tuesday. And honestly, if there's an AFC game, I'm not going. Ravens might be playing or something.
Yeah, so I'll try to catch the game on NFL Network during the week.
I hope Jorge hears this.
You what?
I hope he hears this.
Okay.
His wedding is on an inconvenient date.
Yes. Well, he knows and won't let me watch the game, so we'll see how that goes. We've got No, my girlfriend's going to be sitting in the row, giving me hand signals as to what the score is and who's made touchdowns and things like that. So hopefully hopefully in the whole speak your mind or forever hold your peace part, there isn't a touchdown because she's gonna stand up and go yes in the middle of it.
Ostrich is not gonna remember those. You gotta make them simple.
It's just touchdown, hands up.
You're gonna make the touchdown hands up in the middle of the wedding. You should make it baby arms.
Baby touchdown? All right. Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back next week. Have a great one. Enjoy.
This has been a presentation of the Pro Football Central Network. For news, blogs, highlights, and more, log on to ProFootballCentral.com.